Second Kings chapter 2 verses 1 through 23 has a pretty well-known story of Elijah being taken up into heaven in the whirlwind of the fire, which is a fitting end to his life where fire played a big part, where he cast fire down on the altar uh, when he was standing off against the prophets of Baal, and how he cast down fire on the captains. In last week's lesson, now instead of casting down fire, he's being taken up in fire into glory. And the baton is passing from Elijah to Elisha. And it's this story of transition, a story of perseverance, as it will come out in the text as you dive in deep and you understand the significance of the towns that they stop in. Elisha perseveres in the faith, recognizes his need for the Spirit of God, chooses God over the idols of the land, and he embraces his calling. And then you see kind of perhaps the funniest story of God's judgment in the Bible, where you have these boys, which are probably about teenagers, probably guys around my age, um, and they surround Elisha, and they're rejecting him as the prophet, and they're mocking him as a bald head. I don't know if he was bald naturally, or if there was some kind of prophet, where they shaved their heads as a being to just signify that they were a prophet of God. But these boys are mocking him, and he casts judgment upon him. There's a lot of good applications from this lesson today. One, of course, this is going to be repeated throughout the thing. Don't grow weary of talking about idols and how we need to be examining our hearts for idols, choosing God over the idols of the people. God emphasizes it repeatedly in the book of Kings, throughout the Old Testament, and even into the New Testament. In fact, if you look at 1 John, it's how he ends his letter at 1 John. God emphasizes it a lot because it's important, and we don't want to. We want to be loud where the Bible is loud, and the Bible is very clear about idols and choosing God over the idols of the people. So you can emphasize that, and then talking about recognizing the need for the Spirit of God. Elisha knew that he needed, if he was going to succeed in embracing his calling, he didn't need better methods. He didn't need better speech or leadership skills. He didn't need to read the latest book on business practices or whatever it would be. He needed the Holy Spirit as a life group leader, as a businessman or woman, as a mom or dad, granddad. You don't need better methods. You need the Holy Spirit. The people in your group need to hear that because the world screams you need better methods. You need better strategies. But we scream we need God, the Spirit of God, and we need to embrace our calling. I gave this box right here for you to think through it. I think this would be helpful if you highlighted this to your people. Email this curriculum to your people so that they may print it off or work with it. If they want printed copies, they can come by the church. But we are called as kingdom ministers. We're called as church members. We have callings in the home and in the workforce. And the gifts and callings of God, Romans says, are irrevocable. It's not like trials give us excuse to not embrace our calling. And we have a tendency, as American Christians, we've kind of lived a cushy life. We've had, no persecution, no hardships from the state, so to speak. The hardships that we have are really just the hardships that are common to life everywhere. And even then, we don't have to deal with those as much as some of our brothers and sisters around the world do. So hardships, busyness, hey, this is a tough time, doesn't give us an excuse to lay down our calling. We're called to embrace our calling and live that out. And then when you see Elisha, one of the things that Elisha, how he lives that out is he lifts the curse of sin for those who seek out God through him, and he carries out judgment on those who mock him. This is just a good story just to highlight the gospel. One, Elijah has victory over death, and then you see Elisha lifting the curse of Jericho, which is an amazing gospel story of the curse of sin being lifted from a city that was just judged by God. And then you see God bringing out judgment on these boys who mock God. Is this COVID-19? And every day we are reminded of this, that no one is promised tomorrow. If people still die in the curse of sin, a cure for COVID-19 doesn't do anything for them. They're going to have an eternal death. We need to testify of the gospel. Don't assume that everyone in your life group is saved. That's a bad assumption. But highlight the gospel and lift and highlight how Christ has lifted the curse of sin. There's some good other applications specifically here for fathers on leaving a spiritual inheritance, fathers and grandfathers. that might be helpful for your people as well.